Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. My name is Jenn Hart, and I'm your host. I have a very special guest for you all this week. This is my friend Margie. Hi, Margie. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Margie and I were chatting, and if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, you know I struggle with figuring out how long I've known people, especially if I met them since COVID. And I think a lot of people feel that way, that the time since COVID it just hasn't felt real. But Margie reminded me that, and this is an important part of how I feel about Margie, is our first meeting was supposed to be right around the time that Jack died. And again, if you know me, if you've listened to the podcast, I have talked about Jack many times. He was my soul cat. And we're actually coming up on the 2 year anniversary of his passing. But it also means I'm coming up on the 2 year anniversary of knowing Margie. She did a coaching session with my friend Yvette, who has also been on the podcast. She did it with the two of us. But why I bring all this up is I remember you giving me such grace at that time and us rescheduling. And so many people just gave me grace that I didn't know I needed. And honestly, I'm not sure I knew I deserved when Jack died. And you were one of those humans that just allowed me to feel all the feels. And we postponed that first meeting together. And you were just so understanding and kind. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, that touches my heart. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, you and I have never met in person, but I feel like we know each other really
Totally.
well, which is funny. But give the audience an idea of what it is that you do, Margie.
Yeah. So I am a confidence coach and a leadership consultant, and I have the privilege of working with individuals and teams at work. And I fulfill my mission in work and life by doing coaching, facilitation, and training. So all of my work centers around confidence building and giving people the tools they need to thrive in their work and lives.
Love that. How long have you been in business? Or how long have you been in this realm of business? Because I find a lot that even if we established our businesses, like mine is will be 7 years old this fall, but I've been doing this type of work since my senior year of college, so I've been doing it for 15 years. How long have you been working in this space?
So I was in executive leadership at nonprofit organizations for 12 years before I actually started my business. And so while I was there, I developed this passion for leading teams and empowering communities. And it's really what was the catalyst to opening up my own business. So officially, my company launched in March of 2020, which was an incredibly interesting time to become an entrepreneur. But I've been doing that work for a while.
That's amazing. What an interesting time to start that leap into entrepreneurship.
Yep.
What did your business, both just because of starting a new business, but because March 2020 is when the world started to shut down or really did shut down, what did your business look like when you first launched?
When I first launched my business, it was a combination of coaching and consulting from day one. However, what was so fascinating is when we all went into the pandemic, the need for coaching was astronomical. I think the coaching revenue in 2020, coaching industry received more revenue than any time in history in 2020 because so many people were isolated, scared at home with their families and kids and curious about their career path and their life and what is going to bring them joy when they're feeling isolated. And so I had an outpouring of need for coaching support when I first launched my business. And then after we settled into the pandemic more, consulting started building a little bit more, whether it was being an interim CEO for teams at work or helping with leadership transitions or eventually doing trainings with teams at work once the dust settled a bit.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I had a guest, Angie Callan, on the show back towards the beginning. I think she was in the first 8 episodes, and she talked about the potential numbers for the coaching industry still. And a lot of people say, everyone's a coach, but there's a lot of space for coaches. She was saying she even worked with people. She helps coaches start their coaching businesses, so she
Oh,
coaches
cool.
coaches. But she was talking about people leaving the tech and engineering worlds to be coaches for the people in those spaces and the people leading those spaces. Everybody needs a coach, some sort of coach, different coaches. But where did your passion for this start? Like, I know you've worked in the industry for a long time. What made you love it enough to go out on your own with coaching and then consulting?
think that early on in my career, I developed a passion for managing people. I'm going to do a retake because my phone is thought it was on silent. Going off.
All good.
Um, Second. Okay. So early in my career, I developed a passion for managing people. I was thrown into leadership when I was only 24 years old at a nonprofit, and I was completely unqualified to do that work. Yet someone saw potential in me and gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. And so as I grew as a leader, I had to learn pretty fast about how do you manage people at work, which is a really difficult job. And I loved the work I did related to volunteer-driven agencies and revitalizing communities. And of course, the mission was what kept me going. But aside from that, my favorite moments at work were with developing leaders and developing amazing human beings and seeing their potential and helping them work on goals beyond just the 9 to 5 job they had with me. And so when I reached the 12-year mark of executive leadership at a nonprofit, I realized I was pretty burnt out and wanting a change. And I just kept on coming back to this developing people mindset. And developer is one of my top 5 strengths in my Clifton Strengths Finder, as well as empathy and positivity and activating. And so I had just these natural strengths that were really well suited for coaching and helping develop teams.
It's so funny that you bring up Strength Finders.
Yeah.
I recorded another episode this morning that will go live just before yours. And it's a team of best friends. One of them is one of my best friends too, who own a business together. And they were talking about how they play off from each other. And I actually suggested that they take Strength Finders because I think that they'd find that their strengths really complement each other well. Activator is one of my top strengths too. I, yeah, I love Strength Finders. I think it's really insightful and helps you as an entrepreneur and a leader. So let's fast forward to 2025. I know your business is looking a little different. You're a mom now. You took some time off. What does your business look like now? Where are you focusing? Who are you working with?
Yeah. So my business is pretty centered around the 3 pillars of coaching, facilitation, and training. And so what that looks like, coaching is typically one-on-one, whether someone's working with me outside of work on goals in their life and their career. It can also take place at a workplace if I am doing some one-on-one coaching with leaders to supplement a group engagement. And then facilitation looks like retreats, usually team gatherings, meetings where they want an objective facilitator to coordinate what they're doing throughout the day. And then training is all about giving people the fundamental skills that they need to thrive at work. And that is probably one of my greatest passions because I believe that the greatest challenges we see in the workplace are where people don't have the skill sets to do that thing that you need them to do. And so we are never taught growing up or in school how to have brave conversations. We're never taught how to give feedback. We're never taught how to communicate effectively and give a performance review. We're never taught about emotional intelligence, which is the most important ingredient to effective leaders. And so by giving people these tools, I give them permission to say, I'm human and I don't know how to do that. And that's why it's hard. And then the team together can move forward.
I love all of that. There's a lot of movement around positive intelligence and emotional intelligence, especially in the workplace right now. And I think that's changed a lot since COVID, and it's been refreshing to see. And we need it, right? There's all kinds of Gallup surveys out there right now. Like people want to trust the leadership they're working for. And in, I think the workforce in general is standing up a little more and demanding what they want from their leadership. And you help those leaders show up. You mentioned brave conversations. Can you give us some examples of what brave conversations would look like?
Sure. So, brave conversations is a term that's inspired by the researcher and social worker Brene Brown, who's dedicated her life work to vulnerability. And it led to looking at workplaces and building daring leaders. Her book, Dare to Lead, talks about this topic a lot. But brave conversations are when you are in essentially conflict. It's giving you and your teammates permission to dive in and do what she calls rumbling and have the conversation you need to resolve what the issue at hand. A lot of times we dodge issues and it doesn't help things, but that again goes back to people don't know how to have the brave conversations. So that's helping them become more effective listeners, asking open-ended questions, and using certain communication methods that can deliver feedback and opinions in a way that lands better. And then from there, you build more psychological safety at the workplace and can build belonging and build inclusion. But it all starts with that communication and those core competencies.
I love Brene Brown. I read
I,
Atlas of the Heart not that long ago. And for those who haven't read Atlas of the Heart, I listened to it on Audible because a lot of people told me how hard it was to read the physical book, which
it's a big
is
one.
right there behind me. But I listened to it on Audible and she self-narrates, which I love when people like her self-narrate because you just get a little bit more. But she broke down like every emotion that humans have in this book, and it was so insightful. Her and Mel Robbins are two of my absolute favorites. I'm listening to Let Them by Mel Robbins right now.
I'm
I will
reading
have
it
finished
right
it.
now. That's so
Oh, that's so
awesome.
funny.
Yes, I got it
I
as my one
oh,
birthday present in January for my husband, and that's what I'm reading, and I'm so excited. And Brene Brown is amazing. I got to see her speak live in Austin last year at the Work Human conference, and it was the best day ever.
that is so cool. It's funny because both of them, Mel Robbins and Brene Brown, it's they're known on a global stage, but you feel like they're talking to you. Like no matter how many people are sitting there, you feel like they're talking to you, which is incredible. Let's talk about retreats for a second because I think retreats are really interesting for team building because I think the general public thinks of retreats as yoga retreats or meditation retreats or more of like the self-care, which also what you do is self-care, just it's not the woo-woo type of self-care, it's team self-care. I have a client that also offers retreats for teams. What does retreat facilitation look like? What can not only leaders, but team members expect when they're attending a retreat like what you help facilitate?
So, my most common retreat that I facilitate is with a leadership team or a group of managers. And maybe that's anywhere from 5 to 20 people. And we gather for a day. It could also be with a nonprofit board as well. And what I do with teams is work to co-create and design a really meaningful day. And as a coach, all the work I do centers around outcomes. And that means when we end the day together, what do we want to achieve? What do you want to walk away with? What would success look like to you? And I think where a lot of facilitators and teams go wrong is they do not focus enough on outcomes. And then you end the day, and the next day, people are like, man, that wasn't worth my time. Or we didn't accomplish what I thought we were going to. And that is the last thing I ever want to hear from a team. And so we create our North Star with goals and outcomes. And then from there, we almost reverse engineer and create the retreat. So I do a series of design calls with the key point person from the agency. I often do an anonymous survey so that all of the team can give their feedback so that it fosters a really inclusive environment from day one. And then I design a really purposeful strategic agenda. I infuse almost always training so that people also get tools throughout the day. And then there's a lot of appreciation, culture building, recognition, as well as looking at things like strengths and your core values so that people can really get to know each other well.
The outcomes, I love how you put that because it reminds me of like when you attend a conference. So
Mhm.
often you'll spend all day at a conference and then one of two things, either when you leave, okay, I didn't really get anything out of that. There's no point. I wasted my whole day. Or you get so much out of it that you don't even know where to start. And I think by like what you're saying and giving them very key tools that they can walk away with, it creates that North Star, but not only for the week ahead, but it's tools they can use for the next quarter, for the next year, forever in their teams. Who do
Absolutely.
you like to work with on retreat? What kinds of you mentioned nonprofits, but what kinds of organizations do you like to work with? Do you tend to work with?
Yeah, I love working with all groups, but I'd say my ideal audience is either a larger nonprofit or a mid-sized business. Maybe it's a company with 150 employees, which granted, you can classify a mid-sized business in many different ways, but I
Yeah.
really like working with organizations where there's enough employees to get exciting work done, but the size of the team isn't too big that it can't be impactful. So there's nothing more meaningful and rewarding for me when I hear back from an employee a month later saying, "Hey, I tried out your Brave Conversation framework, and now me and my direct reports are communicating better together." And really seeing the ripples of the work we did, I like for it to be impactful and meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah, very cool. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about Margie as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, because you and I met because again, we did a coaching hour, I think it was, maybe a little bit longer, on specifically on marketing. Yvette and I work in the marketing world, social media, newsletters, and we had the pleasure of sitting down with you for some time and giving you some action steps. So, how do you find your business? Where does your business come from?
Most of my business is through referrals, and I feel really grateful to have incredible clients who have truly changed my life just as much as maybe I have changed theirs. And they have done the work, and they are my best ambassador for my mission, so to speak. And so most of my referrals comes from friends, people I've worked with, etc. Although sometimes I will get referrals on LinkedIn or through social media, but the word of mouth is more common.
Isn't that a great place to be? I do marketing as for a living, right? Like most of the work I do, I am doing a little bit more in like document design and one-off projects and systems, which I'm really enjoying that shift that has naturally happened this year. But it's funny because I help other people market their businesses, but my business is almost 100% referral. And I have found that the clients I get through referral are my favorite clients. The
Mhm.
clients I have to in any way feel like I chase after, which I just don't do it anymore, are the ones who are usually a headache, to be quite blunt, or it doesn't work out, or there's a whole laundry list of reasons that like those referrals are everything, especially like once you get enough into your business that you're really working with the people that you enjoy working with, they're going to probably refer you to people you'll also enjoy working with. So I think,
Totally.
social media and marketing and all of that is important in staying top of mind, but referrals are everything. And for anyone listening, I don't care what you have for a business, referrals are everything. And fostering those relationships with your clients are worth a million times more than a Facebook ad any day of the
100%.
week.
They are.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's more meaningful. Like you said, people are more likely to make an effective referral if they're through a trusted friend. So that's a great point.
Yeah. That being said, you did have a LinkedIn post go quite viral last week. Tell
I
the
did.
audience about what that post was about and kind of the reactions you've been getting, the feedback you've been getting. It's pretty incredible, the reach that you've had.
Thank you. So I'll tell a quick story and then
Yeah.
I'll answer your question. So, one thing that's unique about me in my lived experiences, both in my life and in my work, is experience of being a victim of bullying at an early age in my life, as well as at the workplace. And I've been severely bullied at every job that I've had. And when I got into the consulting and coaching world, I told myself this story that, oh, maybe it's not that bad anymore. And I kept on witnessing it and witnessing it. And because I was a victim of bullying, I had kept my story inside and said, I'm not going to share this. I'm still a little scared. I don't know if it'll make a difference. But then one day last week, I saw my friend Lauren had posted about being bullied at the workplace and how much it hurt her. And it was such a courageous post, and her message was so inspiring. And in that moment, I said, that's it. I'm sharing my story. I'm done hiding. I'm done enabling. I just need to break this cycle in my own life. And I'm going to share my story. And I have no goal other than being brave and using my voice. And if one person, just one person sees the post and they think, gosh, I feel seen, me too, my
Yeah.
job is done. That was my only goal. So I posted it, and there have been 28,000 impressions since last Thursday when I did this post. And it blows my mind the amount of comments, reposts, messages I've gotten, texts from friends, both men and women around the world. It's been incredible. The amount of stories people have shared, as well as thank you messages of thank you for sharing your story. I feel so seen, and this is hard. And it's just taught me a lot. And to be honest, I'm still processing because it was such a significant response and one that I never would have imagined.
How did it feel hitting submit on that post? What
Oh
were what
my
were the
goodness.
feelings?
It
Yeah.
was, I wrote down three words this morning: excited, terrified and relieved. And I think I went between that triangle again and again, and I'm still in that space. It's a healthy discomfort for sure, and it's
Mhm.
really hard.
And how does it feel every time you have another notification about that post?
It feels good. I've
Yeah.
only had one really strange response so far. But every time I think, I wonder if somebody else felt seen. That's the thing I keep on telling myself. And again, that message is being reinforced.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question is what is
Yeah.
that feeling when you get a comment that clearly is another human that you have allowed to feel a little bit more seen in this world?
Oh my gosh. It is the best feeling
Mm.
on the planet. It fills my cup more than you could ever know. I'm an empath. I'm also an Enneagram type 2, which is the helper. We talk about Enneagram often,
Yep.
and there is nothing that brings me greater joy than knowing someone feels comfort, more at ease, more heard, more valued, more seen, and that they feel like they're not alone in whatever they're struggling with in this world.
I think that's part of why you and I hit it off so well is putting that human factor above all else.
Totally.
And it reminded me when I hiked the Camino, which was right before you and I met with Yvette and our friend Shelly, I made a post that was a letter to myself in 2018. And 2018 was the absolute hardest year of my life. It was when the universe took everything away and I was left to figure out what to do next. But I wrote a letter to myself, thanking myself for not giving up. And I share my story a lot. I mean, this podcast is a great example. I'm not afraid to share my story, but it is a little nerve-wracking sometimes hitting submit, not knowing what people are going to say. Um, and at that point, I was still connected with some people from my past that I'm not anymore. And it was actually that post that had me finally block those people that were tumultuous parts of my story because the only negative feedback I got was from this one person saying I needed to get over it and that it was at that point 4 years ago and I needed to move on. So she had missed the entire point of the post of how far I've come and that I was trying to share my story in a way to make other people feel seen. So it was both of these things. One, it was amazing feedback from people who have dealt with depression like I have. And it acted as kind of like a last step to closing doors to things that I didn't need in my world anymore. And social media gets a lot of bad, right? And especially right now, we're in a very, very trying time in the world. And so a lot of people are leaning away from social media. And I will preface this with I completely understand. Margie and I talked about the fact there's been 2 weeks this year I did not release podcast episodes because the world felt heavy and I needed to give myself space.
Yep. Mhm.
So if you are taking space from social media right now, I see you and I am happy that you're honoring that in yourself. On the flip side, I think we have the opportunity to even more share these stories about ourselves. Margie's bullying story, my stories with depression, because people need even more than ever to know that there's other people out there that have experienced similar things that can understand. I mean, the amount of messages, I am very open with the fact that if you're dealing with depression, my phone is always open. Like I am always happy to be an ear. And when people actually do reach out when they're struggling, I'm here and I'm glad that I'm a safe space. And now, Margie, you have let the literally the world know. I mean, that impression count is insane that you are a safe space for those who have similar stories, and that you can relate. And I think it doesn't matter the business you have, we have this really unique opportunity and platform to help the world seem a little bit smaller and a little bit safer for people.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I also
Thank
would
you.
add on to the guidance you're providing your listeners surrounding social media breaks is that one benefit of that can be discernment and reflection.
Mhm.
And something that this world really, really desperately needs from everyone is more curiosity, more discernment, more critical thinking, more empathy, right? And so I actually intentionally stayed pretty quiet on LinkedIn since January. And I needed that time to really think, I'm not just going to be reactionary. I'm going to post with intention and providing helpful content for others, excuse me. So one thing I did is I published an article of 10 things you can try when everything feels like a
Mm.
lot. And I waited to publish that article until a few weeks ago, and it's received a huge response because people really needed that. And it took that time to figure out, what do my readers actually need?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, we can take a pause, we can step back. My word for this year is peace, and it's not just peace like stepping away. It's not peace of just resting, but it's what's going to create more peace in my world long term. And I've talked
Mhm.
about this a little bit, but it's even okay, is staying up a little bit later tonight to get this project done going to create a more peaceful experience for me tomorrow? So, and in the same way, I have a bunch of social media content that I'm sitting on until I feel at peace with putting it out to the world. And most of it has nothing to do with politics. I mean, I'm very open about my politics online, and I'm an advocate for anyone who wants to be. But most of it's about my business, and I just need to feel at peace with what I'm putting in the world. And exactly what you're saying, we kind of take a break, take a breath. I'm a human design reflector. Let's see how many different personality profiles we can hit on today, Margie. But I'm a reflector, and our decision making is associated with the moon, which I'm deeply attracted to the moon, so it makes sense for me. But typically, a lunar cycle is how long we need to make decisions. And I find even putting content out there, if I sit on it, 28 days might sound like a long time, but it's not really. If something still feels good to me, then that's when I'll probably take that breath and put it out there.
So
I think
cool.
yeah, I think we have such an opportunity to bring happiness and bring the human back. And I love your focus on like bringing the human back to all of these aspects, and with corporate teams and making sure people are seen in these spaces. Let's shift back to what you offer. We've talked a little bit. Well, what does coaching look like right now? I know you're not doing as many one-on-one coaches or coaching clients, excuse me. But what does coaching with Margie look like in 2025?
Sure. So my signature program is called Becoming, and it's a 4-month program that allows you to become the person you're meant to be in your work and your life. And that centers around my mission of confidence building. And that's my signature program. And it's usually limited to around 4 people at a time because I provide a really impactful, high quality, hands-on experience for my coaching clients. However, I'm also going to be launching coaching workshops this year, as well as potentially a smaller offering for people who may have time or financial restraints with coaching, who want to do something smaller but impactful. So, really trying to focus on meaningful impact that works in the coaching space.
I love the idea of like those kind of taste of coaching opportunities and workshops because 4 months is nothing in the grand scheme, but sometimes that can feel like a really big commitment for people.
Totally.
So I can't
Yeah,
wait to hear
absolutely.
more about those. That'll be really cool.
So,
So we talked about retreats, we talked about coaching. What does the consulting part of your business look
yeah.
like?
So the consulting part of my business would include the facilitation of gatherings and then trainings with teams. And the trainings are focused on really essential workplace skills that I believe everybody needs to thrive as a leader. And something that I teach in all of my trainings is that not everybody is meant to be a manager of people, but everybody can be a leader. And there's a really important distinction between the two. So most of my trainings are suitable for anyone to develop a leadership skills and be a positive force at their team at work. And so trainings are focused on emotional intelligence,
Mm.
interpersonal communication, focused on those brave conversations that we talked about earlier today, as well as essential skills for managing and leading people. And then I also recently introduced a training surrounding psychological safety and belonging in the workplace and things that people can do to build that foundation on their team.
I think that's an interesting distinction between being a leader and being a manager of people. And I'm thinking back into the leaders and the managers that I have experienced, a lot of managers that didn't belong managing people that should have been more in that leader space. But can you give us a little bit more insight into that difference between people who can lead and people who can manage?
Would love to. I believe that management is a privilege and a tremendous responsibility. And one challenge in the workplace is that people are promoted into management roles. And when I say management, I mean people management. You have direct reports, people who are reporting to you every week, and you're doing their performance evaluations, you're giving them feedback, and so forth. And a lot of times, employers make the mistake of promoting based on skills and certain
Mhm.
competencies that really have nothing to do with effective people leadership. So we all know that person we work with who maybe is highly intelligent from an IQ standpoint and they know how to get work done and they're really strategic and smart, but they actually really struggle in their interpersonal relationships and they are not meant to be a manager, at least initially. I believe that people really have to develop core skill sets before they become a manager, as well as during their time as a manager. So that's the management piece, but leadership is for anybody, and anybody can make a positive difference in their workplace with the way that they treat their coworkers, navigate
Yeah.
their day to day, manage up to their supervisor, the way they are an ambassador for the company values and norms. I mean, anybody can make a difference to shift by shifting the way they lead and making intentional efforts for other people to be seen.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think so often we see people put in management positions because they're good at what they do, but they really have no idea how to deal with other humans. And a lot of people, you can still be I love that idea that you can still be a leader without managing other people. Like just because you can be a leader, the newest employee in your business could be a leader. They could be the ones that are getting people going and inspiring people. I think that's such a cool designation, and I don't think I've ever heard people really separate those two.
Don't talk about it enough. And with my
Uh,
management essentials training, I really try to normalize that and give people permission to say, you know what? I actually don't think this is the right role for me. My greatest strengths are X, and I want to do this role now so I can be more impactful at a company. It doesn't
yeah.
mean that you're less than as a team member. It means that your skill sets are suited for something else. And so, really trying to help teams figure out who are the people that show the greatest management potential, and then how do we help everybody have leadership potential.
Yeah, and what a powerful permission to give someone who is just like, I don't want to manage people. I've been given this promotion, but you know what? This is not where I want to be. This is not where I thrive. And that doesn't mean you're not a leader. I think
No, no.
that's
In fact, if you are in that role and it's not meant for you, you're taking away time and energy from doing things that are more impactful to your business. So if you're really good at, let's say, strategic planning and thinking and data analysis, and that requires a lot of time to do really well, but you're spending 60% of your workday dealing with personnel issues or at meetings with people, you're not doing the work you're meant to be doing. And so really giving people again, that permission to normalize those conversations.
what a powerful way to help teams. I think that is so cool. What else in your business have we not talked about that you offer, that you experience?
I think we've talked about almost everything. This year, like I said, I'm going to be rolling out some free or low cost workshops, trainings, things that you can do during the workday. I also run quarterly challenge events, the Confidence Challenge, and I'm releasing a new one this year that help people receive skills that they need to thrive in their work and lives. And I do that because I believe in making coaching an inclusive space for all people, regardless of their financial circumstances. So it allows people a way to plug in and learn if they can't afford either coaching with me privately or work with their team.
I love the confidence challenges that I thought the first time I signed up, I totally didn't engage at all. The second time did a little bit more. So next time I'll do a little bit more. But
Perfect.
like there can be a big barrier to entry when it comes to coaching. And what a great way to kind of not only let people experience a little bit of what you do, but introduce people to the world of coaching with you for when they can invest financially. And
A great
there's
thought.
there's that interesting like investment of time versus investment of money. And there's people that have the time to invest right now, and you're giving them the opportunity to do that with you, which I think is really cool.
Thank you.
What do you love about being an entrepreneur? You did this for other people, but then you launched it out on your own. What do you love about being an entrepreneur?
There's so many things. I think technically, Tactically, there is the benefit of flexibility and thriving in a learning environment where you can create your own vision and you don't have a lot of red tape. I've learned that I am a learner who really thrives in those environments. I think, though, on a more heart level, it's being able to create offerings and opportunities for people that ignite change that makes the workplace in our world a better place to be, and connecting with other people and just being a witness to transformation is a really powerful thing. And that's really the essence of the work that I do.
Mm. Yeah, freedom and flexibility are often the top tier. And it's funny because I was interviewed on a podcast last week and we talked about that and how still entrepreneurs often work more hours than someone with a traditional job, right? There's a meme that I've referenced many times. It's like entrepreneurs will work 80 hours a week so that they don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else. And but we get to choose what we do with that time.
Great.
I mean, last week I put in a lot of long hours because I had deadlines for clients, and this week's a little bit calmer and I get to do more trainings and podcast interviews. And what I think for me, the fact that every week is different and I get to decide what those weeks look like. Like I'm taking an Oracle card course in 2 weeks to deepen that experience so I can offer it more. Next week I'm taking a financial, that might be this week actually. I'm taking a financial wellness course, like 2-day course. But one of my top strengths is learner, and so I'm constantly dabbling in different areas, and my schedule allows me to do that. And I'm still putting in crazy hours, but I get to decide what those hours look like, which is
Absolutely. And I would add to
cool.
that when you're doing the work you're meant to be doing, it doesn't feel like work. So
Yeah.
even if I'm putting in a ton of hours, which I do, it's so joyful 90% of the time. And so that's the beauty in it.
And it sounds like you help create more joyful experiences for those that do choose that more
Yep.
traditional 9 to 5 too. And there's a huge movement for that, positive intelligence and even just using and utilizing strength finders that we've alluded to many times throughout this episode. You're helping create that joy in the more traditional workplace, which people are demanding. Like the numbers are there. People are requiring it of their jobs. And I think that is so cool. All right, I warned you this question was coming before we recorded. This is a question I ask everyone. But Margie, what is the fire that keeps you going when shit gets hard as an entrepreneur?
It for me is, and I told you I'd get emotional. It's that moment when someone sees their potential and they say, I'm done playing small. Like, I'm done quieting my voice. I'm done asking for permission. I'm done letting people bully or mistreat me. I'm done shying my greatness. And when they see that moment, it's like this light bulb goes off and they think, enough. I'm doing differently. And this doesn't matter if it's in a one-on-one coaching container, a moment at a retreat, or just any type of training where somebody starts thinking differently about themselves so that they can be light and joy to this world. And that makes all of it worth it.
Mm, yeah, that's incredible. And I hope you know the work you're doing is so important in this world and you are creating such a difference. And you and I have never worked together. You've worked with me, but I have not worked with you, but you have made a difference in my world. And the way you show up, I think, is incredible. And I also want to commend you for sharing your story about bullying on LinkedIn because that was brave. It was incredibly brave. And you have made a difference to so many people by sharing your story. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
How can people connect with you if they're interested in any of the pillars we talked about? If they just want to follow along and tune into your free challenges that you post, what is the best way to find you, Margie?
Sure. So my business is called the Thirlby Company. That's my maiden name. And you can visit the Thirlby Company at thirlbyco.com. An easy way to connect is also on Instagram at Coach Margie, Margie. And then I'm on LinkedIn more often than not. And so that's another great way to connect. And it's Margie Thirlby DuBois, which is Dubois.
Awesome. I will make sure all of those are linked in the show notes so those that want to connect with you can find you. Thank you. This has been amazing. You said before we started recording, but I do think the timing was kismet. It was meant to be. It was perfect. And I have had the pleasure of watching your journey over the last few years. And I'd love to connect more because, like I said,
Yes.
I think we have very similar core values when it comes to our businesses. We do very different things. So it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know more about your business. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the way through your podcast you are empowering other women and other entrepreneurs. I think it's something that's really special about you, but it's a huge need in this world and something that's been one of actually my greatest sources of disappointment as an entrepreneur is seeing kind of the competition mindset in the entrepreneurial space. And you are literally doing the opposite of that by empowering the voices of female entrepreneurs. And so kudos to you. I'm so excited to continue following along.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's something that just has always seemed so obvious to me is like when we're all doing better, the vibration of the world is at a higher level and we all can
100.
just create. When one person's doing better, we're all doing better. So
What a
thank you
mic
for
drop
that.
quote. Love it.
Thank you. For everybody listening, if you want to find out more about what I do as a creative strategist, you can find me on Instagram at Life Jen's Way, or my website is jensway.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Jenn Waybor Hart. Gotta throw the maiden name in the middle so people can remember who I am. There's two N's on Jen's, two T on Hart, excuse me. But Margie, again, thank you. I appreciate you so, so much and looking forward to continuing conversations this year and seeing where your business goes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I will talk to you next time on Your Next Business Bestie. Have a wonderful week.